Greetings, my friend. It's a comfort to see you here again. Tonight, we drift into a realm of power, thunder, and prophecy. We'll follow one of destiny's quiet threads as it weaves its way through the world of Olympus, shaping gods and mortals alike. But before we begin, if you could walk beside one god or goddess tonight, not as a follower, but as their equal, who would you choose and why? In the beginning, there was only chaos, a swirling, formless void that stretched beyond the horizons of thought. It was a darkness so profound that silence reigned supreme, a stillness that enveloped the essence of existence itself. Out of this primordial chaos emerged Erebus, the shadowy realm where death lay in wait, the absolute darkness. And with him came Nyx, the dark veil that cloaked the universe. Together, they were the architects of the void, the forgers of the eternal silence that filled the abyss. Yet, from this darkness, a flicker of hope ignited, a force so powerful it transcended the primordial night. Love was born, Eros, a celestial spark that breathed the first whispers of order into the chaos. The soft mystery that stirs soul to long for soul and breath to chase after breath. An eternal whisper weaving the boundless dance of connection and becoming. From love flowed passion and harmony, illuminating the dark corners of existence and casting away the shadows that once held dominion. With the coming of this new light, Gaia was born, the earth itself awakening, vast and eternal. She stretched forth her fertile arms, cradling the seeds of creation deep within her embrace. From her nurturing depths rose towering mountains, rivers that sang through silent valleys, and forests that whispered age-old secrets. Upon her solid surface, life would take root and flourish. All beings, mortal and divine, would find their fates untwine within her protective embrace. In the stillness of the cosmos, Erebus entwined with Nyx, and from their union arose Ether, the heavenly light, and Day, Hemera, the earthly light. But Nyx, in her solitude, bore children of a different nature. Moros, harbinger of doom, Moirai, controller of fate, Thanatos, a path to death, Hypnos, caster of sleep, the Oneroi, manipulators of dreams, and Nemesis, whisper of vengeance. These specters will forever haunt the hearts of mortals. They were birthed from the darkness, reminders of the shadows that lurked behind every flicker of light, waiting patiently to reclaim their dominion. As Gaia took her place in the tapestry of creation, a soft, quiet yearning grew within her, a longing not just to exist, but to connect. For a union, for a balance, for the harmony that would connect the boundless earth with the vastness yet to come. From this desire, born not out of emptiness but of an ancient understanding, came Uranus, the wide, enfolding sky. He spread his celestial arms wide, enveloping Gaia in a loving embrace. Their love was one of the first dances of existence, a tender weaving of earth and sky, of solidity and vastness. Together they breathed life into the cosmos, birthing children who held the promise of creation itself. But beneath the beauty of their union lay a shadow, a distance that crept quietly, like the slow cooling of a once warm fire. Uranus, once tender in his celestial embrace, began to withdraw, his gaze growing cold and distant. The vastness he once opened now felt like an unyielding cage. This chill between Gaia and Uranus was not sudden, but grew from layers of fear and pride. Uranus, silent and stern, saw in their children something to fear rather than cherish. His heart, once aligned with hers, hardened against the offspring who bore the power of worlds within them. Among these children were the 12 Titans, towering beings whose strength and will would shape epochs to come. Oceanus, the endless river that encircled the world, flowed calm and steady. Coeus, the titan of intellect and the axis of the northern sky, held the wisdom of the stars. Creus, the embodiment of the constellation's restless wanderings. Hyperion, the glowing light of heavenly watchfulness. Iapetus, guardian of mortal life and the silent passage of time. Theia, radiant goddess of shining light and heavenly glow. Rhea, the tender mother who would cradle the future gods. Mnemosyne, keeper of memory and the soft echoes of the past. Phoebe, shining with prophetic vision. Tethys, the nurturing giver of the nourishing rivers. Themis, embodiment of divine order and law. And lastly, Cronus, sharp and restless, whose hands would one day grasp the hands of fate itself. Beside these formidable titans were the Cyclopes, Brontes, whose thunderous hammer could shatter mountains, Steropes, forging flashes of lightning into bursts of awe, and Arges, wielder of bright, searing light, masters of crafting power from the very heavens. Their hands shaped the invisible forces that crackled across the stormy sky. And then there were the Hecatonchires, Cottus, Briareos, and Gaius, monstrous giants with 100 arms to strike and 100 eyes to watch, embodiments of raw strength and relentless fury. Their presence was a force of nature itself, born of primal chaos yet brimming with potential. But into the shadowed depths of Gaia's boundless womb, Uranus cast their children with a cruelty that tore through the very heart of the earth. One by one, he seized them, his towering celestial form looming like a dark storm, and hurled them back into the cavernous abyss within Gaia herself, the dreaded Tartarus. Each fall was a violent blow, a brutal thrust into the cold, unyielding darkness beneath the earth's surface. The ground shuddered with their impact, Gaia's body writhing in silent agony as her children were forced back into the prison of her own flesh. Gaia's pain was a deep, aching wound, a mother's sorrow intertwined with helpless fury. To see her offspring cast away, imprisoned within her very being, was a torment beyond words. Her vast form trembled beneath the weight of their suffering, her ancient heart breaking with every cruel act of Uranus. Uranus's voice, once the gentle breath of the dawn, now roared like a tempestuous storm, filled with cold dread and unyielding pride. His eyes, twin stars turned to frozen ice, saw not offspring but threats, fiery sparks that might ignite rebellion and unravel his reign. His hands, once creators of worlds, became shackles forged from celestial iron, binding his children in chains of shadow and silence. This betrayal ignited a fire within Gaia's heart. She was a nurturing mother, a protector of the life she had birthed, and she could not abide Uranus's cruelty any longer. In the shadows of her grief, she plotted. With her hands, she forged a flint sickle, sharp and deadly, a tool of retribution that would bring forth change. She gathered her children, but fear gripped their hearts. They hesitated, unwilling to confront the formidable figure of their father. All save one, the youngest Titan, Cronus, whose eyes burned with the desire for justice and a spirit chained to an unknown prophecy. As night cloaked the earth in stillness, Uranus descended from his celestial throne. Drawn by desire, he moved toward Gaia, unaware of the shadow waiting for him below. Cronus, heart steady but fierce with purpose, gripped the sickle Gaia had forged from adamantine, unbreakable and sharp as the truth he was about to deliver. Then, in a moment both terrible and swift, Cronus sprang from his hiding place and swung the sickle. The blade bit deep, severing Uranus's manhood in one decisive stroke. A scream, not of mortal sound, but of the very sky itself, tore through the night, shaking the heavens and trembling the earth. Cronus castrated Uranus, severing the ties that bound father and son. Blood, dark and sacred, spilled from the wound, dripping onto Gaia's soil, seeping into the sea. From this primordial blood, the earth birthed anew. First, the Furies emerged, cloaked in shadows, their eyes weeping blood, and their hair writhing with serpents. They moved with relentless purpose, embodying vengeance as old as time itself. Then rose the giants, monstrous, immense, rooted in the mountains, and their rage as ancient and unyielding as the night. And from the sea, where white foam frothed around the severed flesh, a goddess was born, Aphrodite. She emerged fully formed, a vision unlike any other, not born from a womb or from a flower field, but from the union of blood, salt, and sky. She was the paradox of beauty and danger, laughter and death intertwined. Her skin shimmered with the iridescence of the sea, her eyes reflecting the endless horizon, both inviting and merciless. Aphrodite carried the power of creation and destruction in one breath, a goddess of desire born from the deepest wounds of the cosmos, destined to weave her way through the fates of gods and mortals alike. Wounded and cast down, Uranus fled to the farthest reaches of the heavens. With his last breath, he cursed Cronus, reminding him of the prophecy's unyielding truth, that no throne, no power, no crown could resist the turning of the wheel. Cronus would be undone by his own child, as all kings before him had been, as all kings after him would be. This prophecy was no mere warning. It was a meditation on the nature of existence, a dark reflection on the passage of power, the inescapable law that all things must yield to what comes after. Like the night that follows day, like the tide that swallows the shore, the rise of one is always shadowed by the fall of another. But Cronus, crowned in the blood of his father and clutching the sickle that had carved his destiny, laughed. His voice was both triumph and challenge, echoing through the empty skies. He cast the severed flesh into the sea, sealing the birth of new forces and futures unknown. Turning to his brothers and sisters, he declared the end of Uranus's reign, the end of the age of the sky, and the beginning of the age of the Titans. The Titans, emboldened by Cronus's audacious act, gathered around their new ruler, their hearts swelling with the promise of power and dominion. The earth, once again, resonated with the vibrations of their triumph. Yet, as the echoes of Uranus's screams faded into the distance, a shadow loomed over their celebration, a prophecy whispered by the winds of fate. Cronus ascended to the throne, the weight of a new era settling heavily upon his shoulders. The crown pressed down like an unseen force, a burden far greater than mere victory. Though his spirit surged with the intoxicating rush of triumph, a shadow flickered deep within, a haunting reminder of his father's curse. The chilling prophecy whispered through the ages. One of his own blood would rise against him, just as he had risen to overthrow Uranus. This looming fate was a dark storm gathering on the horizon of his reign, casting a long and restless shadow over his newfound power. Determined to defy the relentless tide of fate, Cronus sought to seal his destiny before it could unfold. He turned to Gaia, the ancient Earth Mother, his own mother, whose roots intertwined with the fates of mortals and gods alike. Gaia was not merely the foundation beneath their feet, but the eternal witness, the silent keeper of stories etched into soil and stone. Long ago, bound by anguish and hope, mother and son conspired against the sky itself, Gaia's lover and Cronus's father, Uranus. Their pact, born from the fierce love of a brave child and the profound pain of a mother, tore the heavens from the earth, a violent act steeped in blood and betrayal that shattered the cosmic order. Gaia, still bearing the scars of Uranus's cruel dominion, offered counsel steeped in bitter irony. Her advice echoed the very strategy Uranus had wielded in desperation, a desperate attempt to quell the seeds of rebellion that had sprouted within his own mind. This attempt had culminated in his downfall, brought low by the sickle of Cronus, which severed not just flesh, but the bond between sky and earth, setting into motion an endless prophecy. The cruel paradox lay bare. The counsel that once condemned Gaia and her children to suffering was now passed down to Cronus, a shadowed inheritance burning like a dark flame through the generations. The voice of Gaia, deep and eternal as the trembling earth beneath their feet, spoke a grim decree that resonated like a slow, mournful chant through the caverns of time. To forestall the collapse of your reign, you, Cronus, must deny the future itself. The birth of children, the very promise of renewal, must be swallowed before it can take root. Each newborn, a flame of potential power, was to be consumed in the ruthless hunger of the present, a grim feast to stave off the encroaching doom that lurked beyond the horizon of his rule. Cronus's eyes gleamed with a dark resolve. He took her words to heart, casting a dark shadow over the fragile tenderness that once existed between him and Rhea, his sister and queen. Before the wheels of prophecy started turning, their union had been marked by a quiet, almost sacred balance. Rhea, daughter of the earth and sky, had roamed the wild places, dense forests and rolling hills, long before their paths crossed. She was a guardian of life's beginnings, a nurturer of the earth's subtle rhythms, attuned to the gentle cycles of growth and renewal. Her days were filled with the soft whispers of nature, the blooming of flowers, and the sacred dance of seasons turning. When Cronus came to her as both brother and king, their bond was forged not in haste, but in the slow unfolding of cosmic necessity. There was a moment, fleeting but profound, where the fierce ambition that defined Cronus softened, touched by the quiet strength and steady grace of Rhea. She became not only his queen, but a sanctuary, a refuge from the relentless storm of destiny that raged within him. Yet, as the prophecy loomed like a gathering storm, Cronus's love was shadowed by fear. He steeled himself with grim determination, preparing both mind and body for the terrible sacrifice that fate demanded. Feeling the weight of his sickle at his side and the crushing burden of power upon his soul. Each breath he took was measured, each heartbeat a countdown to the moment when love would be twisted by fear into something monstrous. Rhea, sensing the dark tide rising within her husband, braced herself with a fragile hope. When Rhea became pregnant, she gathered quiet strength from the earth beneath her feet, weaving prayers into the wind, willing the unborn child to be spared, even as dread coiled in her heart. When the hour came and their first child was born, Hestia, the gentle flame of the fireplace, the world seemed to still in grim anticipation. Cronus's heart thundered with a tempest of terror and power as he reached out and claimed the newborn from Rhea's trembling arms. Time slowed, every breath stretched thin as he swallowed the child whole, an act both primal and devastating, driven by the ruthless hunger to control the future. This gruesome cycle continued. One by one, Rhea bore children, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, and one by one, Cronus devoured them. Each birth was met not with joy, but with a silent, aching dread. Rhea's once vibrant spirit, nourished by the earth and sky, grew heavy with sorrow and unspoken fear. She could bear it no longer. Desperation clawed at her soul as she plotted a way to save her youngest child. For Cronus, each act of consumption was a bitter reaffirmation of his will to hold power, a grim ritual that etched deeper lines of torment upon his soul. He prepared himself each time with the same cold resolve, mind sharpened like the sickle he wielded, heart steeled against mercy. When Rhea conceived her sixth child, the weight of the prophecy pressed down like a storm upon her spirit. No longer able to endure the relentless hunger that devoured her children, she resolved to protect this child by journeying to a secret place far from Cronus's watchful eyes. Her path led her across seas and rugged lands to the island of Crete, a land cloaked in ancient mystery and guarded by wild mountains and sacred groves. Guided by whispers of the earth itself, Rhea found a hidden cave nestled beneath the towering peaks. It was here, in this remote sanctuary, that she brought forth her son, wrapping him gently in swaddling clothes. With a heart full of cunning and hope, Rhea presented Cronus not the baby, but a stone shaped and wrapped to mimic a newborn's fragile form. Cronus, deceived by the clever ruse, swallowed the stone without suspicion, believing the threat of the prophecy was quelled. The nymphs of the island, keepers of the sacred groves, gathered around Zeus, their voices like the rustling leaves and murmuring streams, weaving lullabies of old, stories of the cosmos, and the delicate balance between chaos and order. At their side, the nurturing goat Amalthea offered her milk, a gift not merely of sustenance but of divine strength and wisdom, infusing the child with the latent power of the earth itself. The nymphs taught Zeus of the world's origins, the primordial beings born from the void, whose existence preceded even the Titans. They spoke of Gaia, the eternal Earth Mother, whose flesh was the soil beneath their feet, and Uranus, the starry Sky Father, whose breath was the wind upon their skin. Zeus absorbed these truths slowly, the weight and wonder of the cosmos settling into his young heart. Yet beneath the nurturing calm, the world was in turmoil. Cronus's reign, born of fear and tyranny, rippled through the realms. His swallowing of his own children was not merely an act of cruelty, but a desperate grasp to forestall the inevitable, his overthrow by a successor. This act sowed unease among many who longed for change. Among the Titans themselves, whispers of rebellion grew. Even the primordial deities, those who embodied fundamental forces of existence, sensed the unnatural order Cronus imposed and awaited the moment to see it undone. Zeus, growing in strength and wisdom, began to understand the depth of his father's cruelty and the fate of his swallowed siblings, trapped within the dark belly of Cronus. The gentle care that once sheltered his spirit gave way to a fierce, unwavering fire of purpose. He felt the weight of destiny settle upon his shoulders. He was no longer merely a hidden child, but the spark of hope destined to pierce the shadows, to confront the darkness, and to reclaim the light for those bound by fear and tyranny. In that realization, Zeus embraced the path laid before him, knowing that his rise would shape the fate of gods and mortals alike. Seeking guidance, Zeus turned to Gaia, whose voice resonated deep within the roots of the earth, ancient and eternal. Her words were a call to destiny and purpose.
Rise, my son. You are the balance of the cosmos, the force of renewal. To break the chains of fear, you must embrace both the divine and the mortal within you. The time will come to free your brothers and sisters and to reclaim the rightful order.
With this solemn charge, Zeus's resolve hardened. He began to forge alliances with beings beyond the Titan realm, those who yearned for liberation from Cronus's oppressive grasp. The Cyclopes, artisans of thunder and lightning, pledged their formidable power to Zeus. The Hecatoncheires, giants with 100 hands whose strength was unmatched, stood ready to fight. These ancient forces, once hidden or subdued, now rallied around the young god who embodied change. When the time was ripe, Zeus returned to confront Cronus, bearing not only the vigor of youth but the profound wisdom whispered by Gaia, the mighty blessings of the Cyclopes, and most crucially, the sharp counsel of Metis. It was Metis's deep understanding of both potion-making and the hidden vulnerabilities within Cronus's dominion that shaped his strategy. She recognized that Cronus's power was not invincible. It was a fortress built upon terror, control, and the unnatural imprisonment of destiny within his own body. Metis counseled Zeus to abandon brute force alone and instead wield subtlety and intellect. She crafted an elixir designed to strike at the very essence of Cronus's strength, a potent potion woven to unravel the bonds of fear and domination that sustained the Titan. To ensure success, she instructed Zeus to disguise this elixir within ambrosia, the divine nectar of the gods, so that Cronus would accept it unsuspecting, seeing it as a token of loyalty rather than a weapon of liberation. In the shadowed silence of that fateful moment, Cronus, proud, unyielding, his heart hardened by years of fear and dominion, raised the cup to his lips. To him, it was a symbol of obedience, an offering from the son he believed to be subdued, and gesture that confirmed his unchallenged reign. Yet within that golden nectar, shimmering with divine light, flowed a hidden truth, a potent elixir born of Metis's wisdom and the secret depths of the earth itself. As the ambrosia touched his tongue, a slow, profound transformation began. The magic coursed through Cronus's veins like a river breaking through ancient dams, awakening the long-silenced cries and beating hearts imprisoned within him. A stirring, faint at first, grew into a tempest of life and memory. His swallowed children, fragments of his own flesh and legacy, yearning to be free. One by one, they emerged from the darkness of his belly, breaking the chains of unnatural captivity. Hestia, the gentle flame of the fireplace, stepped forth with serene grace. Demeter, the nurturer of Earth's bounty, carried the promise of renewal. Hera, regal and unyielding, bore the strength of sovereignty. Hades, shadowed and inexorable, embodied the depths of the unseen. And Poseidon, wild and tempestuous, surged forth like the restless sea. Each rebirth was a rupture in the fabric of fear, a reclaiming of self and destiny stolen by tyranny. The air trembled as the siblings, united once more, stood beside Zeus. Their bond, forged in darkness and strengthened by suffering, magnified their power beyond mere strength. They were no longer fragments swallowed by fate. They were a force of nature, a divine chorus rising to challenge the old order. Cronus, weakened by the very act meant to preserve his rule, now faced the resurgence of his children. The Titans, ancient and vast, watched with bated breath as the balance of power shifted. Some clung to loyalty born of fear and habit, but many felt the stirring of change, drawn toward the promise of a new era, one where justice, wisdom, and courage might finally prevail. As Zeus stood with his newly freed siblings, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, the air around them seemed charged with the raw forces of creation itself. The earth trembled beneath their feet, the skies roared with gathering storms, and the restless seas churned at Poseidon's will. This was the dawn of the Titanomachy, the epic war between the young Olympian gods and the ancient Titans, a cosmic struggle destined to reshape the very order of the universe. Zeus, no longer the hidden child but the leader of a new divine generation, took up the thunderbolt forged for him by the Cyclopes, masters of craftsmanship who had allied themselves with him in defiance of Cronus. Alongside the Hecatoncheires, the 100-handed giants whose strength was unmatched, the Olympians prepared to challenge the Titans' rule. The Titans, led by Cronus and his brothers, wielded immense primordial power, their dominion spanning the heavens and earth. Yet cracks began to show in their unity. Some Titans, disillusioned or cautious, hesitated or even turned away, swayed by the promise of a new order and guided by Gaia's counsel, who had long awaited the overthrow of the old regime. The clash was titanic in every sense. Mountains shattered, seas surged, and the very cosmos quaked as thunderbolts met ancient might. The battle was not only a war of strength, but of wills and fates, an upheaval of generations, with the future of gods and mortals hanging in the balance. Throughout the conflict, Zeus wielded more than brute force. Guided by the wisdom of Metis, he combined strategy and cunning with raw power. His thunderbolts rained down like divine judgment, striking with precision and intent. The loyalty of his allies, the Cyclopes forging weapons, the Hecatoncheires hurling massive stones, turned the tide in favor of the Olympians. In the final decisive moments, Zeus confronted Cronus himself. The Titan king, once invincible in his arrogance, found his strength waning under the relentless assault and the unity of the Olympian gods. With a thunderbolt that cleaved the sky, Zeus struck Cronus down, ending his reign and casting him into the deep abyss of Tartarus, where he would remain imprisoned and restrained by the very forces he once commanded. With Cronus defeated, the remaining Titans were either banished or subdued, and the Olympians ascended to their rightful place as rulers of the cosmos. Zeus, crowned king of the gods, vowed to govern with justice and balance, determined to prevent the cycle of fear and tyranny that had marked the age of Titans from repeating. Thus, from the chaos of the Titanomachy emerged a new cosmic order, the Age of Olympus, where gods and mortals alike would witness the enduring legacy of rebellion, wisdom, and the eternal struggle to shape fate. The stories of Gaia, Uranus, Cronus, and the Titans echoed through time as reminders of the profound forces that forged the world and the gods who would come to govern it. And so the story fades, but its truth remains. The gods may rule the heavens, yet even they cannot escape fate. The threads that shape destiny weave unseen through time and space, binding all, mortal and divine, to the path that must be walked. May your thread lead you back here, to wander once more among stories yet untold. And before you drift away, tell me, which story calls to you next? If there's a myth, a god, or a legend you'd like to explore, tell me, and we'll journey there together.